Welcome everyone, and welcome to the first of a long series of conversations around research integrity. We're looking forward to having as much of an interaction as possible. As you know, in academia, the mandate is always publish or perish, but then we really want to try and do a deeper dive into what are we doing around publishing, or are we in the course of actually publishing, arranging for our own perishing, as it were. And so the research integrity series is really trying to have a series of conversations around what is important for research, what are key critical factors that are needed. And so today we are pleased to have Dr. Khalid El-Bairi, who is going to talk to us a little bit about predatory journals and how we can sort of tell what are the tips and tricks. We intend to have this as interactive as possible. So what we're going to do is we're going to have a short presentation by Dr. El-Bairi, and then we'll have a series of conversations, and then we'll have the next part of the presentation. So just to talk briefly about Dr. Khalid, who has a very impressive CV. He's a primary investigator of Van Dorset Studies and the founder of the Cancer Biomarkers Working Group, and is currently pursuing clinical and translational research in medical oncology. So really well suited to give us this talk. And he's published many peer-reviewed articles in the field of predictive and prognostic cancer biomarkers to improve survival outcomes in several Medline index journals, and his research focuses primarily on biomarkers for digestive and gynecological cancers, such as ovarian and colorectal malignancies. And he's been a member of several international scientific societies, such as ESMO, the European Society of Oncology, and the American Association for Cancer Research, and is an editor and reviewer of several academic journals. So we're quite keen to hear his insights on what to avoid, and is a guest editor for special issues on emerging topics in gynecological malignancies, such as platinum-resistant ovarian cancers. And he's involved in global oncology initiatives through providing free training to young researchers around LMICs, and joined the ASCO Trainee and Early Career Advisory Group as a member for the 2022-2024 team, and the National Community Oncology Dispensing Association as an advisory member in its international executive. Dr. Khalid, welcome. We're looking forward to your presentation.
Thank you so much, Professor Miriam. This is great. I am very happy to present the second webinar with the AORTIC, our organization in Africa that supports training of young oncologists in our city. So just let me share my screen. 1 minute, please. Do you see my screen?
Not yet.
Okay. So I have shared my slides right now. So hopefully you are seeing my presentation. Do you see my first slide?
Yes, you can.
Great. So yeah, thank you so much, Miriam, and the AORTIC Advisory Board for accepting to host this great initiative about research integrity. You know that in our under-resourced setting, unfortunately, we are not well trained about research integrity. We want to publish, but sometimes after publication, we discover that there are issues in our methodology, in our data. So it is important to increase awareness about all of these issues. So for this reason, I discussed these topics with Professor Miriam, and she was very supportive of the idea. And now it's real. It's the first webinar of this series of webinars about research integrity. And this time we are going to focus on predatory publishing. So I have some conflict of interest to declare. I received previously some royalties and honorarium from international publishers, but this will never affect the content of my slides. It is also important to notice that the opinions shared in this webinar reflect my own perspectives and not of my affiliation of institution. So the content of this webinar will be like this. We are going first to focus on the history or the value of peer review in oncology. You know that we can never publish our data without going through the peer review standards. And this is a very important topic that we need to address first. We are going to address general features of predatory and hijacked journals. These are two different types of predatory journals that you need to know. So you cannot be targeted by these fake journals. Later, we are going to talk about the danger of predatory publishing in clinical practice. It's important to talk about the danger in terms of research integrity, but the main important danger here is not really when we publish, but when we use this data to provide guidelines for our daily practice. And this is very, very important point that we need to discuss and address together. I am also going to discuss some of the results of our survey based on a cross-sectional survey study that we recently published on the perception of oncologists on predatory publishing. And later, you know, when we diagnose an issue, you need to prepare some interventional to resolve the issue. So I am going to discuss some educational interventions to increase awareness on predatory journals and also propose some solutions for those who published in predatory journals and those who are now preparing articles for publication. And of course, I will finish my presentation with some perspectives, particularly the future of ethical open access and the impact of Africa in this process. And finally, I will be sharing some personal perspectives based on my humble experience as an editor in international journals. So let's start with the first part, which is a historical focus on the value of peer review in our daily oncology. And you need to know that scholarly peer review or the academic peer review now is a process that uses some research methods and finding to be reviewed by experts in the field. So this process is called the peer review. And you cannot really publish any data now without passing this process, which is a standard now in academia. And the peer review methods, as you know, are used to maintain quality standards and improve performance and provide credibility of our science. And the first scientist who prepared the standards of this process is Henry Oldenburg, which was a German-born British philosopher and considered now as the father of modern scientific peer review. You need also to know that the peer review is something new in academia, and the academic peer review practice has only been consolidated more recently, because previously papers were published without really good peer review. So for instance, the Lancet, for example, started to peer review its submissions until. So scholarly journals require peer review, which is a very important process to maintain integrity of the data and their credibility. So this data at the end will be changing our practice in our daily care of our patients. It's a multi-step process. It's required. When you submit an article, it should be checked by an editor and then reviewed by experts in the field, and then having the decision to accept your data to be published or to be revised or to be rejected. So it's a standard, and all scientists goes through this system, which is required in scholarly publishing. Unfortunately, the predatory journals, as a first important information you need to know, is that they bypass this process. They don't provide any peer review. They accept everything to be published without any impact of the peer review standards. So unfortunately, this is a phenomenon that appeared during the open access movement. So the day we put money into the publishing process, there was the emergence of these predatory journals that collect money from authors without providing any credibility for the science published in their journals. We need to start with some general features of predatory and hijacked journals. You need to know what are these journals, what are their features, so you can prevent yourself to submit to their websites. One important thing we need to start with is that previously there was a scientist called John Bohannon. He prepared a very flawed article with, let's say, manipulated data. So it was really a faked article, he submitted to a lot of journals to see what is going to happen. So he discovered that a lot of journals that are open access, that were indexed, highly impacted, they accepted this this article even if it was flawed. This means that the peer review was compromised, and this article was accepted, unfortunately, by a lot of peer-reviewed journals, and that was the starting point of predatory publishing awareness. In fact, he discovered that a lot of peer-reviewed indexed journals do not really check the content of these articles, and they publish them without really checking the content and the methodology used by authors. So this was the first, let's say, first information we had about predatory publishing. Later, there was a librarian scientist called Jeffrey Bale, who was really increasing awareness about this phenomenon. And he observed that during, for example, the last 10 years, between 2011 and 2016, there was an exponential increase of the number of open access predatory journals. And this was first emerged in India, and later it becomes a global threat to science integrity. If you want to check what is a predatory journal, is something easy to identify. When you check, for example, the website of predatory journal, you will find some irrelevant information. The first thing that is attractive here is that they put a very attractive titles like international journal to say that they have international editorial board, they publish international literature, but it's not really international. It's just a part of the title to attract authors to submit to this fake websites. Also, they put some logos like the Crossref. The Crossref is an initiative to index references and articles, and they use it to attract authors to say that we have a quality publishing system. And also they put some very attractive information like an impact factor. Here, for example, they say they have 7.7 impact factor, which is wrong. When you check the Web of Science database for relevant impact factors, you will find that this journal is not indexed on Web of Science. So they put this information here just to attract people that they have a high impact factor, but in reality, it's not a real impact factor. It's just a fake one. Another example of predatory journals is that one of their behaviors is that they use WhatsApp to contact authors. This means that if you want to submit your article, you can contact them using WhatsApp. And this is something that doesn't exist in real journals. You cannot really contact a journal using WhatsApp. So they do that to bypass the whole system and having a lot of submissions from authors. Another important feature of predatory journals, in fact, they use the ASSN, which is a number that gives some credibility for websites, for journals. But in reality, when you check, you see that it's really falsified and not a real one. Another example of predatory journals is that they use information about indexing. For example, they put the logo of PubMed here. It's like they are indexed on PubMed, but when you go to PubMed midline, you will realize that the journal doesn't exist there. So unfortunately, authors, when they found this information on the website, they will say, oh, okay, it's indexed on PubMed, so it's a good journal. But when they publish there later, their article will never appear on PubMed midline. So unfortunately, this is something now very famous in predatory journals. So be careful when you check the website of these journals. When you want to verify if the journal is indexed or not, you need to go to PubMed, not the website of the journal. One of the important features of predatory journals too is that they put in their website that you can join them as editorial board members. Real journals will never put this like this way. So you need really to receive an invitation from the editor-in-chief. You need to be really a good scientist in the field with experience in publishing in your field. But when you check the website here of this journal, you can just apply, send your information, and you can be added to the editorial board of this journal. They gain more credibility by doing this because when a young scientist goes to the website of these journals, they check the editorial board. He can find, for example, some very famous names in the field, and he will say, okay, it's a credible one. But in fact, it's not. And they do this strategy just to attract more authors to submit. They also use some very attractive titles. This is a capture from the base list, where I find a lot of predatory journals. They used like titles like European Journal, American Journal, Canadian Journal. So when a young scientist checks these titles, he will realize that it's in Europe, it's located in Europe, in Canada, but it's not. It's not really located in Europe or in Canada. So it's just an attractive strategy to attract more authors to submit and to give more credibility for their website. You can also be invited by these journals to be members of the board, and sometimes they will ask you to pay fees to be members of the board. This is bad because, unfortunately, sometimes when you want to get promotions, some academic institution will ask you if you are a member of the board of some journals. So here they propose to you to be a member, but you need to pay for that. This is not the process of being an editorial board member. This is not how you can be there. So you need to receive invitation from the editor-in-chief. You need really to be recognized in the field. And you will never really receive invitations to pay the journal to be the editorial board. So this is one of the strategies of predatory journals. They ask people to be in their editorial board, and sometimes they ask them to pay fees so they can get more credibility for their CVs and also get promotions when they want to become associate professors, for example. You can also receive some invitations from predatory journals that are random. They are not in the field of your domain of research. For example, here I received this invitation to publish in this journal of rice science. I am a medical doctor, so this is not my field. I don't know why they are inviting me to publish in a journal of rice science. So this means that they sent random invitations to a great number of scientists without really checking the field of these scientists. So they invite them this way, and sometimes it's successful, and you can submit your papers to these journals. And the thing that is attractive here is that when you check the guy who invited me, he is an MD PhD. This means that he is a physician scientist. Physician scientists don't publish in the field of rice science. So they put their names here just to attract people. And a guy who is an MD PhD should not be in the field of agricultural science. So why are they doing this? In fact, because people who developed these journals are not scientists. They are just people who want to get some money for free, easy money. They are money collecting machines. So they don't have any expertise in science. They just send random email solicitations for authors. And unfortunately, sometimes they are very successful. And I know a lot of colleagues that published in predatory journals because they were solicited from using this kind of invitations. Unfortunately, the target of these journals are young scientists that are not well trained in LMICs, and this is really hurting because when you do not train your young scientists in terms of research integrity, they can publish easily in these fake journals. In summary, if really we want to summarize predatory publishing, we need a day of discussion. So I will just give you some more information as an abstract of this issue. The first important behavior of predatory journals is that they don't never conduct any real peer review. They don't send any of your papers to legitimate reviewers who are experts in the field. They will just ask you to check the references, for example, or some form of the article based on their instructions, but they never invite real peer reviewers to check the content of your paper. And this is a very important feature of predatory journals. For this reason, we need to fight against this because there is no peer review done for your manuscript submitted. So they are known for fake metrics, including false and high non-existing impact factors. As I said, they also claim to be indexed on PubMed midline. They have hijacked editorial members, and they are not real ones. Sometimes they invite people, they put their names without informing them. And also they contact you, for example, using WhatsApp and social networks. They have low open access fees. Their websites are not professional, as we saw together today. They send acceptance letters days after submission, and the whole, the publishing system, the peer review, particularly the peer review system, takes time and energy, so you can never get an acceptance letter in the days after submission. So unfortunately, people and young authors can be very happy when receiving acceptance letters just days after submission, and this is very, very bad for our African oncology. They also contain some spelling and grammatical mistakes in content published in their websites. They invite using emails. They are not attached to well-known academic publishers, and also they try to mimic the names and websites of renowned academic journals. This is something called hijack journals, and I will talk about it later in one slide. And also they use the SSN number improperly to attract more authors and to give legitimacy to their websites. One important notice here is you need to know that there is predatory journals, and also there are some journals called hijack journals. So hijack journals are duplicates or fake websites of legitimate journals, you know. So they use the same title, for example, or some similar titles. They use same SSN, and they do that to use this legitimate information from credible journals to attract more people. So when you check for Google, for example, to find the website of your legitimate journal, you can find the other website of a fake journal that is very similar to the legitimate one. So if you select the wrong website, you can publish in the wrong journal and it will never be indexed, and it's a predatory one. So they use this strategy to bypass the quality of the journals, and this is unfortunately done by malicious third parties creating with the intention of defrauding academicians. And the purpose, of course, is to offer academics the chance to quickly publish the research online in exchange for a fee. So this is very bad. There is a lot of hijack journals that use the same logo, the same title, and sometimes the same information about the advisory board of the journal to attract authors. So be careful. Always check the real website of the journal before submitting. And Google is not really a good idea to find the website of your target journal. And as you can see here in this slide, in this capture from the Bill's list database, there is really a lot of journals that are similar in terms of their title. And unfortunately, this is something that sometimes is difficult to identify when you are a beginner in the field. Before having the break, I will be just discussing very fast the danger of predatory publishing in clinical practice. You know that when you waste the data of your research, it's bad. But when this data are wasted in a journal that is not peer-reviewed, it can sometimes kill your patients. When we publish, we want to improve patient care. So if an author read an article published in a predatory journal and uses this data that are not peer-reviewed on his patients to improve his care, sometimes this can be bad, and that can really provide dangerous practice in our daily oncology. So predatory journals have developed malignant tactics to infiltrate reputable indexing databases such as PubMed Midline. This is very bad because now on PubMed, on Scopus, you can find predatory journals indexed there. So if you use their information, the article published there, they are not peer-reviewed, so this can badly harm your patients. And unfortunately, we use PubMed every day, and making the identification of predatory journals on PubMed is somehow very challenging if you are not an expert in the field. And if you use the articles published on PubMed and in the predatory journals, then this can be very dangerous for your daily practice. Unfortunately, some people are using articles published in predatory journals to conduct systematic reviews. And you know, in the decision process of medical doctors, we are using guidelines, and these guidelines comes from evidence synthesis. And evidence synthesis is a process where you do a critical appraisal of the content of published literature. And if you use predatory articles as a resource, as a reference for your evidence synthesis, then this can have really considerable negative effects on patient care. So this is one of the issues that are rising right now. We have more journals that are predatory and being indexed on reputable indexing database like Scopus and PubMed. So try to be very careful when you use the data from these databases when you want to improve the care of your patients. So I will take a break here and receive your comments and your questions, if any.
Thanks so much, Khalid, for that excellent introduction. And I just encourage us all to maybe put some comments in the chat, or it would be nice to hear if anybody's had, any interactions with predatory journals. Nobody's approached me through WhatsApp through rice farming, although I'm optimistic that, someone will pick up my dietary predilections. I don't know if this is just by a show of hands, has anyone on the call had interactions with predatory journals? You can just raise your hand, or if you want to make a comment, just unmute yourself. Oh, I can see Akwi. Akwi, go ahead. Belle, are we able to unmute the speakers?
Yes, they are.
Akwi, go ahead. Oh, sorry, she said she's not able to speak. Tonya Onyeka, are you able to make some comments?
Yes, I am. Hi, Miriam. Hi, everyone.
Hey.
This is thank you, Khalid, for this presentation. It's very, very, very stimulating. I find that I get, and like most people would admit, get a lot of these emails in their spam mail. And there's a lot of the times they have spelling errors. So that's one thing that jumps out, a lot of spelling errors, a lot of things in the emails that are not related to the subject matter. So that's one way also to find that out. Thank you so much, Khalid, for this presentation.
Thanks, Tonya, for those comments. Kudus,
Can you hear me?
Oh, yes, Akwi, go ahead.
Yeah, I think another thing is a lot of praise, highly esteemed professor, something or the other. Or I think like the speaker mentioned, you get the Journal of Agriculture and Farming asking you to write about something totally off topic. So I think something not in your field. I agree with the spelling errors, and then just a lot of praise.
Thanks, Akwi, for highlighting some of those red flags. Kudus, I don't know if you want to make a comment, or you just had your hand raised because you had an interaction.
Hello.
Hi, go ahead.
Good afternoon. Yeah, thank you very much, and thank you very much, Khalid, for the presentation. I just want to relate an experience I'm currently having. Actually, I've been getting constant message via WhatsApp from one American journal, in quotes, asking me to submit paper into their journal. But I sense by all attributes seems to be a
Kudus, we lost you. I think we lost Kudus, but I think what he was saying, Khalid, was that.
Hello.
Oh, hi, Kudus, are you back?
Yeah. Yes, I'm back. Thank you. So I checked BL list. I checked DOAJ. That's the directory. I didn't find the name of the journal there. So I'm wondering, beyond checking those lists, is it enough to just look at those characteristics of the journal and just assume they are predatory journal, or if they don't appear on those lists, could one just assume that they are non-predatory journal, one can publish in them?
And maybe Khalid, before you respond, Kudus has raised a good point around the DOAJ, which many of the people maybe on the call might not be aware of, which is basically the directory of open access journals. But there's also a journal, what is it, the JCR, the Journal Citation References, and those are some of the resources you can use. But then perhaps Khalid can sort of give us a whistle stop on maybe what are the key pointers that one needs to look for beyond those two or any other resources. Go ahead, Khalid.
Yeah, thank you so much. Thanks for the participants for raising this information. It's great to have your interaction with us. The thing I really believe in right now is that don't never trust mono indexing. I will talk about this later. Single indexing database should not be a good criterion. For example, if your article, your journal is indexed on Directory of Open Access Journal, it's just a criterion. You need one another more. So if it is indexed on journal citation report, you need to check for PubMed, you need to check for other criterion. So later I will talk about this in the part where I will discussing the guidelines and recommendations, but please believe me that single indexing is not really something to recommend. Because we have now journals infiltrating a lot of database, including PubMed, Scopus. So when you have a journal that is indexed on Scopus, on PubMed, on journal citation report, on directive open access journal, then it's a good idea. So having a lot of indexing database, indexing this journal is great, because there is it's less probable to have a predatory journal indexed in a lot of indexing database. But if it is only indexed in only one, like PubMed, then be careful. You need to check for another database. So I will be talking about this later in one of my slides, and I will give you more details.
Thanks. And I don't know, Akwi, you have your hand raised again. Did you want to make a comment?
No, I need to figure out how to lower my hand.
No worries, no worries. And maybe Khalid, before we get to the next section, I particularly liked your slide where, you know, the peer review, where you're seeing people with, you know, machetes and whatever's looking like they're all set to, you know, do you harm. And whereas you're having the red carpet welcome with the, you know, predatory journals. I guess some of the frustration from young academicians is, yes, you aim, and we sort of, Akwi mentioned, let you know we need to aim high, but then you kind of get to JGO and they tell you, sorry, you get to Lancet and say, well, we can't do that. So in frustration, you're like, I really want a place to, you know, be able to submit my work. What would your advice be for young oncologists coming up, and what are some of the potential solutions around this?
Yeah, I will just share my humble experience as a young cancer researcher. The beginning is always difficult. I remember several years ago when I tried to publish my first article, I received the first day a rejection from the editorial desk. They said that this paper does not really merit to be submitted to this journal. So it was really frustrating. Am I really someone who doesn't produce good science to have this comment from the editor from the same day I submitted? So it was very frustrating. But later I discovered, after I get more knowledge, more methodological training, that my article was flawed. So it was maybe the way they say to me that does not merit to be submitted is bad. We can do more to say that you need to improve your paper and etc. etc. But sometimes when you are in the beginning, it's always like this. So you need really to use this to switch from this negative energy to a positive one. And this can be done by more experience, but by more submitting to more journals, improving your paper, getting external peer review from colleagues. So I think the beginning is always like this, and even Nobel laureates receive rejections. So it's okay to have rejections. You know, this week I received more than 3 rejections. So it was okay. I submitted to another journal. It's the process, because it's highly competitive, and you need to improve always, piloting your paper with your supervisor, your colleagues. There are a lot of initiatives to improve the quality of the content of articles published by young scientists. Later, I will share some of them with you if you want. You can submit your paper to a scientist and get in some mentorship, and then you can get your paper accepted. But this is a process that takes time. So please, you need to be patient. You will get articles published, but please be patient. And science is something difficult. If you publish easily, then it's bad, very bad. You need really to go from this bad process, this negative energy, until you become very strong.
Yeah. I think, Khalid, what I'm hearing you saying is that I think as young scientists, we basically need a lot of humility and willingness to learn, because even the best of scientists are still going to get rejection. And because with science, as with everything else and research, it's an iterative process. So you're making incremental small steps and improvements in a specific direction. And I think Akwi's just made a comment on the chat, which I think is also very pertinent. Sometimes when you And one of my mentors told me this, it was a little cheeky, but they're like, sometimes you actually want to go and submit to the highest journal so that they reject you, but they give you a whole list of what is wrong with your article so that you can go back and refine your science and learn. So I think it's just I think what both you and Akwi are saying is really the openness, the resilience as well, to know that this is part of the process and this is every step is a better refinement. Then not to keep the rest of the audience waiting, it's really to go into the next steps around what we think, or what are some of the steps that we can do, or what are some of the tools that can help us to become more facile in navigating these journals. Go ahead, Khalid.
Thank you. Do you see my slide?
Not yet, not yet.
Okay, maybe I need to share again. Yeah, I am sharing again. Okay, so now. Do you see my slides?
Yes, we can. Yes, I can.
Great. So this was an introduction into this phenomenon, and now we are going to discuss more serious issues with this phenomenon. So recently, I read an article which was a cross-sectional study that used Scopus database to see what are these countries that publish more in predatory journals. So basically, the authors didn't target predatory journals you already know. They only targeted the predatory journals that infiltrated Scopus database to see who publish in predatory journals.
Khalid, we've lost you briefly. Khalid, are you back? Can you hear us? Maybe as we wait for Khalid to reconnect, sometimes the connections across Africa are always a little challenging. Perhaps we could hear about how familiar are most of the people on the call with the tools that Khalid had mentioned. We talked about Beale's criteria. How many of us on the call have had any experience, or is this the first time that we're hearing about it? Or what are some of the tools and tricks that maybe have led you to think this might not be a legit journal? Maybe if you could just raise your hand or share your experiences. I'd seen Frances had her hand up. I don't know if she would like to make a comment, or that was at an earlier hand.
Okay. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Francesca. Welcome.
Thank you so much. Oh yes, I have had a couple of them, but I vividly remembered one. I think that was in 2010. I published a paper, a medical physicist from Nigeria. So I published a paper that was my MSc project on scrap metals, radioactivity in scrap metals. I did some measurements and the rest. So I published it. So later on, I received an email that I'm invited to a Chinese journal to become one of the editors. So that since I am working with metals and the rest, so I'm being invited to become one of the editors. I was like, this is my first paper. How come? So I was just skeptical about it. So I went to tell my supervisor about it, and then I didn't do anything about it again. I left it that way. So seeing this now has brought a kind of what do I say now, has brought a kind of remembrance, and it has really dawned on me. Though I've seen some other ones, I don't actually respond to them. I just ignore, because I know that there are many scammers online. So this is like coming home now to be a, well, I don't know the right word. I've missed my word. So I believe you get what I'm trying to say. Yes, yeah. I'm glad.
Okay, thanks so much for sharing. And I see Olayinka has her hand up. Olayinka, please go ahead.
Thank you so much. I've been monitoring many of the predatory journals over decades now. It's only that many of them are becoming more and more advancing with the technology manipulation of prints. One of the major way of identifying some of these predatory journals is their address. You find out that, yes, I live in Nigeria and I publish outside. So when they send their invitation, or when I see the journal address, I contact my colleagues outside the country to verify their address. Often these predatory journals, they are just existing in the sky. They don't have a very verifiable address, physical address that international police can monitor their activity. Then another thing with them is they also have a syndicate of reviewers who will do a kind of linguistic polishing of the papers. And by the time you pay, you find out that they will go after your email and wipe off evidences of payment.
Oh.
Yeah. And thirdly is that most of these journals, they are unduly painted, multicolored. So that is the first thing that strikes an individual with their communication. And also they go ahead to borrow or camouflage or hijack. Let me use the word of Professor Khalid. They hijack the logo of standardized journals. Okay. So finally, is that most of the people that fall victim of predatory journals, internally, they are hideous of their data. They are not ready to make reference to people who have done work locally. So when an individual is hiding the data from internal faculty members where the study may have been done, then it's likely to fall victim of predatory journal. Because these journals, they are at the background, whereby not many people will access. So you look at the publication inside, you find out that the work is a replica of work already done at a nearby city, which they will not reference the people who have done that work primarily. So this is another way of monitoring identify predatory journals. The references will evade local scientists who have done work primarily before on those studies. And that is my contribution. Thank you, please.
All right. Thanks so much, Olayinka. I think you raised some very salient points around one, again, the ethics and openness of research, because if you're looking at publishing and you're trying to hide what you're doing from your peers in the same institution or even in the whatever, it already begs what are you hiding? And so really being open to collaborating and actually consulting actually helps us sort of avoid some of these pitfalls. And then the other thing you mentioned was brightly sort of colored websites. Unlike, I would say, nature, where you see brightly colored birds and those are supposed to attract you, apparently take those with a pinch of salt. I see Ademola also has a comment to make. Go ahead, Ademola.
Thank you so much. Good day, everybody. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Go ahead.
Yes, my name is Ademola. I'm from Nigeria. I'm surgical oncologist. I just wanted to contribute as part the cybersecurity aspects of these predatory journals. And everything that's been said so far has been very germane. I also learned some things too. But I just want to share a very quick story of personal experience of a friend of mine who was pressured to publish because of promotion in academics, and then sent me an email requesting for a manuscript from an obviously predatory journal. And I warned him against it, but he still went ahead to submit that. And then later on, he started getting suspicious and he told them that he wasn't interested again. And unfortunately, they sent him another email and asked him to click on a link to withdraw his article, to verify that he withdrew his article, knowing that that email contained a virus. So his system got corrupted and he got hacked. And it was actually a messy stuff. So eventually, I had to search and I did a lot of digging on the internet and traced by that the website they claimed for the journal was actually in Malaysia, and it was actually a gambling syndicate that website came from. So there are a lot of cybersecurity issues surrounding predatory journals. And like the speaker said, they use malignant methods of trying to get victims. And when you wake up to the scam, they may try to inflict injury in different ways. So yeah. I really feel that we should really be very aware of this clear and present danger. Thank you so much for allowing me to speak.
All right. Thanks so much, Ademola. And as we are continuing to hear, these sites can be quite malignant. So it's really looking at how do you avoid them in the first place. So some of the strategies, and I'm hoping that Khalid will be able to join us in a bit, but really some of the 3-step points around approaching, because it would be useful to hear from the audience how they sort of think about or select journals, because I can see quite a number of accomplished researchers on this call. One of the 3-step method we say, which is a quick fix, is almost like think, check, and submit. And so thinking is really thinking about what is the best fit for the journal. And sometimes rejections can occur, not because your article is necessarily wrong, but maybe because it's not in line with the requirements of the SAID journal. For instance, you've maybe done some qualitative work on, I'm just say palliative care or supportive care, for instance, and you're trying to submit it to a journal of translational medicine. They may not necessarily get intuitively what you're trying to communicate. So perhaps a better resting place is for perhaps a journal of psycho-oncology or journal or something that looks more at the broader sort of experience and maybe are less inclined to be more molecular. And so that's really thinking about what is the best fit for the journal. And sometimes I think as a younger investigators, there's pressure to put in high, higher, with a higher impact factor, but then you also have to ask yourself, does that, really make sense in terms of where I'm submitting it? Because if you want to, present your local series on perhaps management of breast cancer, sorry, that's my default, but then you're trying to submit it in some esoteric journal where you're having open access and you're looking at it and you're trying to see the impact of this, you want this to impact care in your region, perhaps it would be better suited to submitting that to a local journal. And so trying to thinking about what is the best fit one for the paper that you're submitting, and then checking as Khalid said is a process. You want to look at whether it's an index journal, you want to look at several references. You also want to be able to talk to your senior colleagues and peers around is this a suitable resting place for this journal as well, and then sort of doing your due diligence in terms of the checks and balances. And then once you're finally satisfied with the the thinking, the checking, and then one can finally submit. I think we have Khalid back on, so we'll quickly go through some of the tools that can be useful for this. But thank you all for that, for those wonderful insights. Khalid, welcome back. Over to you.
Yeah, I am really sorry. I had some troubles in my network. So thanks, Miriam, for managing this. So let me again share my slide. Could you please allow me to share my share? Could you please allow me to share my slides? Because they say that the host disabled attendee screen sharing.
Yes, yeah, just trying to get to you.
Okay.
There you go.
Yeah, great. Yeah, do you see my slides right now?
Yes, we can.
So can you please tell me about the slide where we stopped?
We had stopped at the different, at the Scopus review for the different countries that were having access to predatory journals. Yeah, that's where we were. Yeah.
Okay, sorry again. So I will move fast because we don't have a lot of time to discuss this. So there was a cross-sectional study that used Scopus database to see who publish in predatory journals. We are not talking here about the known predatory journals, but here they used the predatory journals that infiltrated the Scopus database. So as you can see, Morocco was one of the most countries that published more in predatory journals. And this is really hurting. It hurted me a lot. So I tried my best to increase awareness about the issue and to talk about this publicly, provide training, educational interventions, and one of them, I will share it with you today. So we conducted an international multi-center survey-based study to have some information about the perception of oncologists on predatory publishing. And this, in fact, is still under review. We didn't publish it yet. So I'll be very happy to share with you the field paper soon. But I will be also very happy to share some of the finding of the study today. We were very happy because we shared first the data during the annual congress of the ISMO. We got a merit award, and we had a lot of interaction from great global oncologists from other countries, from high-income countries that tried to help me to go further in this project, and it was really successful. So I'll be very happy to share some of the results. So it was a survey-based study that investigated oncologist knowledge on predatory publishing across oncology specialties using two cohorts from high-income countries with comparison to those practicing in low and middle-income countries. Of course, we used descriptive statistics and logistic regression to study the factors associated with predatory publishing, and we used cross guidelines to report our finding. We had a lot of collaborators from LMICs, and this is great. We got some interaction from Ethiopia, from Brazil, from Pakistan, Bangladesh, Morocco, and also some colleagues working in the field of global oncology, like Professor Nazik Hamad, Dario Trapani, and other colleagues from high-income countries that try to collect data from their city. We got great coverage. We covered 16 countries, including 35 countries categorized by the World Bank classification as LMICs. And we had a lot of interactions from medical oncologists and also radiation oncologists, in addition to other fields in oncology. The most important result here is that people are publishing in predatory journals because they are under pressure to publish. This means that they receive, they are under pressure from their institutions, from their supervisors and mentors to publish more. So this was one of the reasons that was very frequent in our results. Also, people publish in predatory journals because they receive email solicitations, as we noticed together in the previous slides. And as you can see here, more than 60% of people, of oncologists, have received email solicitations during their career. And also, there is an important number of participants that received solicitations not from emails but using social network, which is also another strategy used by predatory conferences and predatory journals to attract young scientists with no expertise in the field, so they can get more articles published in these journals. Unfortunately, most of the participants didn't know about the tools to be used to prevent publishing in predatory journals, including the Think, Check, Submit initiative, which is great. And most of them also received frequent solicitations. This means that journals will send you invitations frequently, so they can get interactions from you. When we asked about the reasons that encourage oncologists to submit to predatory journals, as you can see here in the results, because oncologists, they like fast decisions, to improve their career, to increase the visibility, particularly international visibility, because they cannot afford open access fees, because they need to publish for their residency program or for their PhD thesis. And as you can see also, here that these journals are not peer reviewed. This means that people are submitting to journals because they are not peer reviewed. It's like that they want to publish just to publish, not really to get feedback from the journals and to improve their study. And also in some cases, they were recommended by their supervisors. So this means that we need to train young oncologists, but also we need to train the trainers. And this is also a very important remark during this results during this study. And of course, they say that in some cases there is no repositories to identify predatory journals, and their invitations are encouraging. So these are most of factors that we studied in the reasons that we studied in this study and were shared by oncologists that participated in this survey. Why do predatory journals target scientists, particularly from LMICs? Because they can afford low open access fees. This is true. We don't have funding to publish our research and to conduct our research. So these journals, you know, they have low open access fees and they are affordable. The good open access costs very high, unfortunately, to date, because they have poor knowledge on predatory journals. This is somehow true because we do not publish good quality research. So we don't find where to publish because we like the fast publication process. This is true because we have young residents, young oncologists that want just to publish to get their diploma. Because they are not well informed about the importance of the peer review, and that's it. So I think these reasons are shared across countries, including LMICs. We used logistic regression to assess the factors associated and that increase the risk to publish in predatory journals. And as you can see here, we found that responding to article solicitations increases the risk to publish in predatory journals by more than 3-fold. And also, being an oncologist in an LMIC is also a risk, increases the risk to publish in predatory journals by 2-fold, as compared, of course, to high-income countries. And the most shocking result here is that if you have academic experience, this will not protect you from publishing in predatory journals. This means that in some cases, people have experience in publishing process, but they can also be targeted easily by predatory journals. And this is something you already know, it's the publish or perish area. And this is really bad. So what can we do? We know when we diagnose disease, we need to propose treatments. It's the same case when you identify this issue, you need to propose educational interventions. And we were somehow very successful in providing some training for our oncologists in Morocco and in other countries. And we published this study using the approach of distance education as a tool to improve research knowledge about predatory journals with a focus on Morocco. So I will be sharing some of the interesting results we got from this educational intervention. So we first developed a course in English for Mohammed VI Polytechnic University. We developed another French-based course on predatory journals for our French-speaking universities in Morocco. And also we prepared another course for the Center for Multidisciplinary Research and Innovation in Africa, where we shared some information about predatory journals. So we tried to make this experience global. And the course was bilingual on predatory publishing using distance education approaches like this one we do for the article right now. It's a great initiative. First for Moroccan researchers and then for other African scientists. So we assessed the experience based on survey-based study to evaluate the outcomes after delivering these educational solutions in both English and French. Before this course was conducted, 40% of participants indicated that they don't verify journal quality before manuscript submission, and most of them consider Scopus indexing and the impact factor as the best criteria for journal publication. This is bad because Scopus is not a good criterion really. It is highly infiltrated by predatory journals, but unfortunately in Moroccan universities, they ask you to publish in a Scopus indexing journal if you want to defend your thesis, for example, and the impact factor is still a criterion that is really a log for scientists, they want to publish in high impact factors, and sometimes they don't verify if it's really a good impact factor, a real one, because predatory journals, they put very fake impact factors on their websites. And approximately 50% of surveyees did not have previous information about predatory journals. And this is also bad. This means that we need to do more. We need to increase awareness about this issue. And the pressure to publish by supervisors, institutions of affiliations, funding agencies was noticed in a great number of participants, unfortunately. So it's like universities care more for ranking, for publishing more studies than for the quality and preparing good scientists to build good studies in the future. And of course, we were successful in improving the situation by providing considerable information for young scientists, and we were successful in increasing their knowledge, as you can see here in the final results of the summary. So I can say with caution that distance education, including webinars, is cost effective, particularly for under-resourced setting, to improve research knowledge on predatory journals in setting without available funding, with logistic restrictions, etc. So I do believe that providing webinars to increase knowledge, to improve knowledge of young scientists is a great idea, and I really like this initiative from the AWTIC. The day they said, yes, we can do that, I was very happy, and Professor Miriam was very supportive for these initiatives. And I hope that we can share this experience later as a publication in the near future. So if you want to check more about the data and the results of our study, you can have free access to this paper we published recently in International Journal of Educational Integrity, where you can find the whole results of our educational intervention study. So what should be done? That's a very important question. When you publish in predatory journals, are there any solutions as a salvage treatment, for example? And what should be done to prevent publishing in predatory journals? I think this is one of the important slides I should discuss with you today. Let's first discuss about prevention, how to prevent and avoid publishing in predatory journals. Always check, think, and then submit. We never submit directly after finishing and finalizing the manuscript. You need to check journals, think about them, and then submit. And there is a great tool online available for free called checksubmit.org, where you can find a process. It's like a multi-step verification process before you submit to a journal, and at the end you will not really waste your results in a predatory journal. It's really effective. Please try to use it. Also, please try to avoid mono-indexing. When your journal is indexed only on Scopus and not indexed on Web of Science, not indexed in PubMed Midline or on Directory of Open Access Journals, please try to avoid it, because now we know that there is a lot of predatory journals infiltrating databases like PubMed Midline and Scopus. But the thing I really recommend is that your journal, your target journal where you want to publish, should be triple indexed. When it is indexed on PubMed Midline, it is indexed on Scopus and Science Citation Index. This means that there is less probability, less odds to have your article published in predatory journals, because a predatory journals cannot infiltrate more than one indexing database. And always select a journal from a list of well-known publishers. We know that there is great publishers that publish good science, so please try to select from their list. Those independent journals that have no well-known publishers should really be avoided. Also, the thing I really love in oncology is that we have great journals from great scientific societies like ESMO, ASCO, the American Association of Cancer Research, and so on. So please try to publish in their journals, because their journals have great advisory boards, they have great reviewers, they respect the publishing process in terms of ethics and everything. So first try to submit to these journals. And then if you get rejections, then you can go to another list. But please try to publish in journals published by international oncology societies. And of course, good journals do not invite for submissions. It's rare, very rare, that you will be solicited by a good journal to publish. Always it's predatory journals, starting from grading We found that you are great expert in the field. Can you please submit to our journal, etc., etc. So please try to avoid that. And also some thoughts to share today is that instead of asking your team to produce data and publish, train them first about all the issues of research integrity, because we don't need technicians. We need really thinkers, great scientists that answer our daily practice questions, that try to improve patient care. So publishing or not is not important. The most important thing is to improve our patient care. So please try to not to be technicians, just publish to publish. Also, we need to work together to halt the transformation of hybrid journals into fully open access and allow authors from LMICs to share their accepted non-edited publications without legal copyright restrictions. And if you published your work in a predatory journal and you didn't know it was predatory at the time of submission, it's okay. But just don't repeat the same issue. Don't submit again to a predatory journal. You can always say that in your CV and state that it was an error from me and I didn't know it was predatory at the time of submission. So for me, I really recommend that young scientists who wasted their results in predatory journals to state this in their CVs. It will really increase transparency. It will say to people who will read your CV that you are transparent and you did a mistake, but now you know about the issue and you are trying to improve yourself about it. And of course, LMICs-based researchers are more susceptible to predatory publishing, as we discovered in our survey-based study. So more educational interventions developed by organizations like the OurTech, and really hats off for the OurTech for these initiatives. Researchers and other academic institutions should work in this perspective to train their scientists about research integrity issues. So if I published my research in a predatory journal, is there a salvage?
I think we've lost Khalid again.
At an individual level, authors are compassionately invited to explain, as I said, to enhance the reliability, publicly speaking about this so they can in their institutions and their colleagues. Really? Hello? Do you hear me?
Yes, we can, Khalid. If we can just wind up, I think we are getting to a little beyond the hour. Thanks.
Hello?
We can hear you. I was just saying if you could kindly wrap up, please. Thank you.
Hello?
Hi, Khalid. Can you hear us?
I hear you, but I think you don't hear me.
No, we can hear you okay. We were just saying if you could share your last slides and then we can close. I think we may have lost Khalid again, but I think we've had quite a number of interesting points. I think what we can say is, dear esteemed, distinguished, honorable participants, it is in your best interest to take everything we say with a pinch of salt, especially as far as journals are concerned. And so I think if there's any take-home messages, it should be what we're saying, the think, check and submit, and use some of the resources that Dr. Khalid had suggested, which will be on the which we'll make available after this chat. I think one of the areas that I mean, this is just the first in a series of talks. Our next talk will be around data manipulation and retractions in cancer research, which I think is also pertinent as young researchers. How do we sort of know that we're not necessarily massaging the results, as it were? And so I think one of the take-home messages as well, beyond think and check and submit, is that all of us are susceptible to predatory journals. So it's really about building those communities of practice, enhancing a research integrity, and really striving to really have the end goal as improving our patients' lives. So I just want to thank you all for your attention and time, and encourage you all, even as you get off the call, to think, check, and submit, not just for journals, but in everything in life. And so just to wish you an interesting evening and to look forward to our next series on research integrity. The recording will be available on our YouTube channel in a bit. And looking forward to our next series of continental conversations. Till then, stay safe and keep up your research integrity. Have a good evening.
Hello, my friends. I hope you are fine. This is me again. I apologize for the last time. We couldn't finish our webinar because of my unstable internet. So we were okay that I'll make the supplement and later combine it with the whole video. So you can watch it on YouTube. And of course, you will have time to comment and ask your questions. And of course, I will check the video and respond to any of your questions. So apologies again, and thanks to Arctic for hosting us to discuss about the issue of predatory journals. So starting from this slide, as you still remember, we provided some solutions to increase awareness about predatory journals, and also to prepare some advices for our young oncologists who already published in predatory journals. So the question was if there is any salvage solution so they can protect the data they have produced, and also to give some credibility of their papers unfortunately published in predatory journals. So one thing I really support is that when you publish a paper in a predatory journal and you didn't know at that time that it was predatory, then you can always put that into your CV. So when you cite your article in your CV, please state that you apologize to the scientific community about this, and it was an error. And of course, I think this is important to give some credibility of your paper. Of course, this is just a solution that we can propose for young scientists who published in predatory journals. So please do not repeat the same error. Do not publish again in predatory journals. So if you have only 1 or 2 papers published in these fake journals, you can state that publicly and transparently in your CV. So people who are going to read your CV will be informed about that issue. So this is something important, because when you are transparent in reporting your publications, so this will give some reliability into your academic achievements. One other solution that is highly appreciated from the National Library of Medicine in the United States is that you can always deposit your paper into the database of PubMed Central, where they can review it and then decide whether it merits to be indexed on PubMed or not. So you need to follow these whole steps. Please go to the link here I cited, and then you will go through a multi-step process where you can deposit your files, your paper accepted and published in a predatory journal, and then there will be like a review from internal review from PubMed Central, and at the end, if it merits, then they can deposit into their database. And of course, this will increase its visibility internationally, and it can give some citations and credibility for your scientific data produced. So please try to have a look at this website, because it describes all steps that are required if you want to index your paper on PubMed Central. One very important thing that I really need to discuss with you is the future of open access. And I strongly believe that the ethical open access that respects the rules of publishing standards, and also that gives some inclusion and diversity and no barriers to our African oncologists, is that Africa, I feel that it's the future. If you want to build great journal, in Africa, then it should respect the ethical open access. So as you know, unfortunately, every day we are seeing papers with flawed design and data are published in international journals, and these journals are fully open access. So they ask authors to pay, and they accelerate sometimes the peer review process. Sometimes it's very superficial, and because it's like a money collecting machine. In fact, when you have an open access journal, it's like they are under pressure to publish more if they want to get more money. So unfortunately, the review and the peer review process in a lot of cases in these journals is flawed. So let's say that these journals have lost the ethical standards of publishing in academia. So we know that big journals too are infiltrated by big money from industry. They publish sometimes clinical studies that are not really relevant for our daily practice. When you check the design, for example, in terms of endpoints used, in terms of the design, in terms of the controls used, you will realize that they are just want to get some statistical significance instead of clinical relevance. So in addition to these issues in this open access journals, in fact, the current model of paying article processing charges is highly overestimated. Sometimes it's more than 2,000 euros, and you cannot really it's unacceptable, because how can a publisher publish only one paper with this amount of money? It's a huge amount of money, and it is not really well justified. So always the article processing charges from international journals are overestimated, and this is bad. Unfortunately, we urgently need to redefine what a predatory journal, because sometimes when you focus your discussion on the peer review, it's not enough. We need other information, like as I said, the overestimated article processing charges, the inexistence of strategies from journals to waive the fees from non-funded authors, for example. In addition to that, we always face this issue of not affordable article processing charges, unfortunately, from these international journals. So people like me and you in Africa cannot publish their data in open access journals, and unfortunately, the number of hybrid journals is becoming very low. We have a lot of hybrid journals that are transforming their business model into fully open access. So at the end, we will not find any journal that will publish our papers for free. So we urgently need to redefine what a predatory journal is. As I said, we should not focus only on the peer review that is flawed in predatory journals, but also we need to focus on the inaffordability of article processing charges. So when a journal puts barriers on publishing data from low and middle income countries, then it's a predatory journal too. So as I said, instead of focusing on peer review, we need also to talk about this issue of article processing charges that are, as I said, in a lot of cases overestimated and not justified. So if Africa wants to publish and develop international journals, in fact, Africa should focus on affordable article processing charges. In fact, I previously proposed some flexible publishing models for authors in under-resourced setting. So I tried to propose a solution for this. So I hope it will be adopted by African journals. For example, it's easy. You need to ask the authors if they have funding or not. So if they have funding available, then it's okay. They can pay for open access. But the issue is that when you don't have funding available, then you need to ask your author if they can justify the lack of funding. And I think their universities, their laboratories, their like institution can provide a certificate to journals to defend these authors because they don't have any funding available. So if they have this certificate, then the journals should provide fuel weavers. But if they don't have the certificate, then they can always publish in hybrid journals. So I propose this model to international journals because unfortunately currently they are focusing on the World Bank classification to categorize authors into those who should benefit from fuel weavers and those who should benefit from only 50% partial weaver. So the issue with this World Bank classification model is that it does not take into consideration funding available in each team. So, for example, if I am from Morocco, a lower middle income country, when I want to publish in an international journal, they will ask me to pay 50% of the fee. And when I check the amount of money that I should pay, sometimes more than 1,000 euros. So 1,000 euros is not available in my city. I cannot afford that. So even if I am from a lower middle income country, having 50% reduction of the article percentage is not enough. So because this does not really show that I have funding available. So we need really to change this model of classification because it hurts authors from low and middle-income countries. In addition, I strongly believe that if Africa has this vision to create new oncology journals, then it should focus on some guiding principles that respects our vision in low and middle-income countries. So endorsing open science is always interesting and important to share our data publicly and transparently so people can get access to this data and have some actionable information for our policy makers and also on our patient care. So open access is important in this perspective. Also promoting the open peer review, because when you promote open peer review, then you give this trust on the academic research, and also it shows that your journal respects philosophy behind producing research data. So unfortunately, Western journals do not promote open peer review. It's rare to find a Western journal that shares the peer review reports with all stakeholders, policymakers, and the public. So when you promote open peer review, you give more trust into the scientific process, and I strongly believe that it should be one of the aims of building new journals in Africa. Also, adhering to research integrity guidelines, we always, unfortunately, discover that some papers are flawed in terms of design, in terms of data, etc. We discover plagiarism, we discover falsified data, but unfortunately, these journals do not retract these papers, despite that it is dangerous because it might negatively impact our patient care. So developing a new journal in Africa should always adhere to research integrity guidelines and retract always those papers that do not respect ethics and standards of research in academia. Also preferring scientific rigor, quality, and clinical relevance instead of significance. We see this in Western journals based publications. Unfortunately, we are seeing every day new clinical trials, randomized clinical trials published in international journals that are more focusing on providing statistically significant results instead of improving patient care. So the clinical relevance is absent, unfortunately. So it's like, for example, industry-sponsored trials are more focusing on surrogate endpoints, secondary objectives, instead of primary endpoints that always should be overall survival and patient-reported outcomes. So unfortunately, journals are more interested to publish positive results, statistically significant results, instead of those results that may have clinical relevant impacts. Also, it is always important to waive the fees for authors with no funding available. So if you want to build a great journal in Africa, we need to adopt this model of waiving the fees for authors with no funding available, as I said previously. And there are some journals that adopted what we call pay what you can. So if you adopt a strategy of pay what you can, then it will be great, because authors, they can pay what they have available. So then the author will benefit from open access, and also journal is supported by some fees to develop and to pay always those fees related to the administration process, etc. Also, it is important to address the issue of gender inequality and the representativeness of oncologists from LMICs in the journal editorial boards. So we need more oncologists. Sorry, again. We need more oncologists in the editorial board of these journals, because they can provide new perspectives, new visions to implement policy and strategies to improve cancer care in, and resource setting. So for this reason, I am strongly supporting global oncology initiatives in journals, and this should be a key important decision from these journals when they publish papers related to global oncology. It's always also interesting to sustain the importance of reproducibility in science. When you support authors to provide reproducible studies, then it's always great. It's also always great to increase the voice of young scientists, because unfortunately they are not really represented in international journals. So giving more places to young oncologists to be on the editorial board under supervision of senior oncologists, it will be great to prepare the workforce for future great oncology in Africa. And also, one important thing that unfortunately is absent in Western journals is that we do not have patient advocacy associations in the journal editorial board. So if we give a place to patient advocates into the journal development process, then it will be great, because they can defend more the values of patient advocacy globally. And I think Africa has a great challenge in this perspective. So the day we decide to build a new oncology journal in Africa, we need really to involve more patient advocates in the advisory board of these journals. So I strongly believe that Africa has great opportunity to develop ethical open access beyond the pure business model developed by for-profit Western publishers. So we need really to work on that together, and I think our tech may have some positive impact in this perspective to create a journal for Africa that publish great oncology data that may impact our patient care in our city. And as I said, the pay what you can strategy should be adopted by these journals, because unfortunately we don't have funding available in our setting. So it's always important to give a chance to authors with no funding available to share their results publicly and transparently. So I have some personal perspectives to share, because I am an associate editor in international journals. And unfortunately, when you don't work with them, you will not really discover and explore that also they have some predatory agenda. But the day you work with them, you can realize that they have some predatory behavior too, unfortunately. So please do not trust big journals when they talk about predatory journals. They also have predatory behavior. One example is that, for example, when you work with these international Western journals as an associate editor, it's a voluntary based work. You are not paid for the work you do, and unfortunately it's time and energy consuming process. You need to conduct peer review, and you need to respond to authors in time and provide quality peer review. And at the end, when you ask the journal to support you, there is no support at all. An example is that, for example, when you have an article accepted in one of the journals of the publisher where you are working for free as an editor, they don't accept to waive the fees. So even if you work for them for free, they don't support you back. So this is also a predatory behavior, because they are using associate editors to collect money and develop their business, and there is no support back at all. So for me, and this is my own reflection, I strongly believe that these journals that use international researchers as editors for free and without giving them any support back, then they are predatory as well. But unfortunately, this is a hidden agenda, and we need to work with them to discover this. For me, I think one last slide is that the only solution to limit the emergence of predatory journals is that you need to support the open peer review. When journals share openly the peer review reports, then we can categorize the articles that did not benefit from peer review and those who really goes through a very strong process of quality verification and peer review standards. So please focus on peer review, on open peer review, and it will bring great opportunities for our journals in Africa. I have an ongoing project to assess the cost of publishing oncology science in predatory journals. It's an economic analysis, so if you want to join me to help in data analysis and data collection, then please just contact me, and we will be very happy to include you as co-investigators. Also, we published some guidelines in GCO Global Oncology, where we defend some tools, some guidelines to be used by young oncologists if they want to publish excellence in their setting. We have also a series of papers published by ASCO Connections, where you can find great opinions based on my humble experience. So if you want to follow them and provide great and publish great science in your setting, just look at the website of ASCO Connection, and then you will find freely available content for this. Always share your knowledge. It's important. Please try to share your knowledge you got from these webinars with your colleagues, so we can work together as one team to fight against predatory publishing. And at the end, I would like to thank the AWATIC for hosting these webinars, Professor Mariam Motibi for moderating this, all other institutions that helped me to publish some papers related to research integrity, and also the ISMO committee for providing merit hours to share our data in their international meeting. This is my contact data, so if you want to contact me, just say hello on WhatsApp or by emails, and we can discuss further these issues. And please do not forget to publish better instead of just publishing to publish, because the final destination is to provide actionable data to improve patient care, not just publish to publish. And also, it's important to train the trainers, because in some cases, unfortunately, publishing in predatory journals is promoted by senior authors, because sometimes they put pressure on young scientists to publish a lot of papers, and this is bad. So we need to train them in relation to research integrity issues. And that's it. Sorry again for my unstable